let's put a definition on influencer in this case. I- If someone's thinking influencer, that means that there are folks out there that have a large following. Is that the influencer that you're referring to in relationships?
So this is the traditional view of influencer marketing is you
Hmm.
need to have 1 million followers to be considered an influencer, for
Hmm.
instance, right? Which is just not the case because, in the days before social media, those traditional marketers, they knew that the communication channels were limited. So anytime they threw an ad up somewhere, they were going to get a defined audience. It just is not the case today, right? Because we're all over the place. And ask your kids who influences them. Ask me who influenced me. I'm going to talk about, actors and actresses and celebrities and sports heroes. Not the case today with younger generations, right?
Hmm.
It's YouTubers, it's TikTokers like Charlie.
Hmm.
It's my daughter's, is fanatical about Chloe Ting, who I've never heard of, but she watches her ab workouts every day. And that's the reality of today, is that influence has truly been democratized. So, I give you a great example about, not having to have a lot of followers. There was this one rule that I talk about in the book that it came out, I don't know, 20 years ago. Someone said, look, when we look at the internet, we can analyze the internet in this way. 90% of people on the internet are lurkers. 9% are true engagers. They'll comment on a blog post, they'll share that blog post. 1% are content creators. So if we, at the end of the day, someone that has influence is a content creator. Sometimes they're just curating content. Sometimes they're just publishing random things, but they are creating content online,
Hmm.
on social media. They're a podcaster, blogger, YouTuber, what have you, but they're creating content. And from that content, they yield influence. From that content, people follow them, they find them. And if we look at that top 1%, right? So let's put that over to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 500 million users. There are not just 5 influencers on LinkedIn. The
Hmm.
top 1% of 500 million, and if my math is correct, is 5 million.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have, 100,000 followers to be considered an influencer. And we like take it over to Instagram. That's 10 million people on Instagram. And so I think that model, even though it was written before social media, I think it still works today. So when we look at it that way, what brands have been doing in this traditional influencer marketing that only looks at followers is that these major celebrities like on Instagram have priced themselves out of the market. Small businesses can't work with them, and brands are saying, you know what, these people work with anyone and everyone. They're
Hmm.
not really these sort of social media influencers. They're almost like traditional celebrities. So they go down in size. They say, look, why don't we work with micro influencers? If you have 10,000 followers, we consider you a micro influencer. And they're finding the smaller you get in terms of follower size, the less fraud there is, the less chance they bought fake followers, the less chance
Hmm.
that they're buying fake engagement. And the more in tune they are, the more niche they are, the more in tune they are with their community. And then a year or two ago, they said, Steve, let's take it down one more notch. Let's work with more nano influencers, right? And these are people that have between 1 and 10,000 followers. So now when you get there, it's like, if 1,000 followers is considered someone that has a significant amount of digital influence to be part of that top 1%, who do I know that has 1,000 LinkedIn connections? Who do I know that has I mean, my daughter has, 400 or 500 followers on Instagram. She's 15 and she just launched her account 6 months ago, right?
Hmm.
So it's not a matter about having, this incredible amount of influence. It's a matter of having some influence, but more importantly, influencing a community that's important to you and your company. So when I look at it that way, in my book, I say, people have it wrong. It's not about the followers. It's more about the brand affinity. Because if people know, like, and trust your brand and they have some influence, they're going to want to collaborate with you, right? Instead of you trying to reach out to these celebrities who, if they've never heard of you, they probably won't want to work with you. And if they do want to work with you, being savvy business people, they're going to charge you a heck of a lot of money and it's going to be a one-time transaction. Why don't you look at the people already following your company? Why don't you look at your friends that you're connected with? Why don't you look at your customer base and see, hey, yeah, I didn't know that Jane had 1,500 followers on Instagram. I didn't know that Don was, had a few thousand followers on Twitter, and have open-ended conversations. We want to get more traction in social. You're already there. How can we work together, right?
Hmm.
And if they're a customer, if they're a follower, if they know, like, and trust you, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier for you to find a win-win than to reach out with someone that has 10 times more followers, right? Where you're probably going to have to pay money. With these people, Steve, what we're finding out is you don't even have to pay them money. For just giving them product or service can get you a lot of mileage when you work at that level. And that's really where I see a lot of really, really long-term benefits for companies when they have their own little pool, their own little army of influencers, right? And these influencers are really brand advocates. And if they're not brand advocates, you want to convert them into becoming a brand advocate. And when you do that, they're talking, this is how you're inciting word of mouth. They're talking about you without you having to ask them to, because they love what you do so much.
Look at
That's the ideal. That's the concept of influencer marketing I'm preaching, which is just very different than probably when people are listening to this. Oh, Neil's going to talk about TikTokers and Instagrammers. It's only for B2C. This is relevant for any industry. And in fact, the smaller companies can make the biggest impact.